We talk a lot about desire and wanting things, but we very rarely talk about implementing things. And I think that's because you have to get your head right first, and then you can act. And if you act without getting your head right first, you can run into trouble. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about the change requirements for achieving goals. So, I've definitely been in kind of a weird space lately. I've been going through kind of a metamorphosis of sorts, I suppose. And it's kind of shocking to me how often these occur in my life. They don't seem to be rare by any means. So this particular metamorphosis came through, kind of a dark, emotional period of time and reintroduction of old information and stuff that I've heard before, and then figuring out new levels of integration, all those things that kind of go along with it. So it's not been in an easy path, it's not been an easy shift, but it is kind of cool to see where I am and where I've come from, and all the changes that have occurred, even though, to other people they might not seem that amazing. The subtle shift just within my own head has been kind of awesome. So, I did plan on making this video yesterday, but apparently I wasn't inspired by it then because, it didn't come to mind at all. And then after I finished recording yesterday's video, I was like, oh, right, that's what I meant to record. So, this is apparently the day that I'm supposed to do it. Or I remembered it due to sheer determination, and it might end up not being a great video, or something like that. I've already tried recording it once, and my phone died, so that didn't work out so well. But essentially, I wanted to discuss this concept of needing to change in order to achieve goals. And this is a pretty common one in this particular field of study. I mean, I'm doing quasi-metaphysics, spirituality, and self-development stuff here, so, I don't really have a specific path that I'm following, but I am kind of drawing from all these different fields and trying to bring them all together, because my goal, rather than to teach you any specific skill, is to just help you navigate life so that it's easier for you and works better for you, and also for me. Because this is a constant journey that you never seem to finish, which is cool and sucks at the same time, because, that means there's always more to do, there's always more to learn, and there's always somewhere else to go with it. And we, as humans, have a tendency to want to have an end goal in mind, and the end goal with stuff like this is essentially to keep learning, to keep growing, and to keep moving forward, which is not exactly a satisfying end goal. But as somebody who is inspired by subjects like this and who continues to push forward, learn more about myself and about the law of attraction and how the world works and any number of things within that and outside of it, I continue to do so. I continue to push forward while knowing the whole time that this journey is going to take my entire life, and I still won't reach the end of it because it's a constant evolution. We are creating an evolution rather than having life force it on us, which is a different approach to life, more of a choice rather than something we're stuck with or forced into. So, this change would come to everybody at some point and in some way. I just tend to side with the people who choose to go down this path voluntarily. That's ultimately the difference between me and, say, somebody else who doesn't study this stuff. It's largely, I'm here because I would rather not discover all these things through the most harmful, terrifying, horrific, painful way possible. I'd rather figure this stuff out by choice rather than having to suffer in order to get there. That being said, I do know that most people who start this path usually do so because they have been through something traumatic. You know, I lost somebody I considered to be a sister when I was very young, so, you know, I am a prime example of that. I had a trauma in my life, and that inspired me to start this path. So, that seems to be how it works. You know, we all, to a certain degree, take the way of the cross, we take the way of suffering until we realize that's a bad idea, and then we switch. Which is not to say that you couldn't choose to go on this path through other means, but yes, suffering tends to be the mechanism by which most of us come to this. So when it comes to taking control of your life and starting to make these changes consciously, many of us kind of confuse this concept of we need to change us, we need to work on our internal world, we need to heal past hurts, we have to reintegrate the child or whatever the case may be in order to actually start utilizing these tools and mechanisms for creating the life that we want. And I think that a lot of spiritual or self-help or metaphysics practitioners, whatever the case may be for most individuals, they tend to fall into this trap as well, where they consider hypnosis and therapy and life coaching and all these other things as absolutely vital in order to move forward in any of these fields. And it's just not true. You can start right from where you are. That being said, you cannot continue to do the same thing and expect a different result. Which is the definition of insanity from the way it's been described to me, is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So you will have to change, but the change that you would have to make is a future change. It's the change of the person you are going to be. You don't actually have to change the person you were. You don't have to heal past hurts. You don't have to do all this inner soul searching and all these other things in order to make these mechanisms work for you. That being said, as somebody who does want to understand myself and others and does want to let go of past hurts and things like this, it is important to me to go and do that kind of work, to look in the soul, to find past beliefs or thought patterns and all these other things, and then remove them slowly through acceptance and love, and improve my sense of well-being. But you don't have to do that in order to achieve these things. You only need to do that if you want to do that. So if you're like me and you like doing that internal work, then by all means do it. But if you're somebody who just wants to start getting results with stuff like this, then you can just go from here, start implementing specific practices in order to achieve the things that you want and get there without having to go and do all the soul work and all these other things. I have been recognizing lately that I've been kind of getting stuck in this mentality for a little while, where I believe I need to change me, I need to be perfect, or I need to find all of the issues within me, and then I can get the things that I want. And I think a lot of people fall into this particular trap because it's so much easier to accept that we are wrong or we are the issue than it is to actually just start implementing these tools that we don't necessarily believe are going to work. So I've read books like Think and Grow Rich. Currently what I've been studying is Reality Transurfing by Vadim something, I think is his name. And through his work, one of the things he discusses is this concept of you can just start from where you are. But the kinds of things that you need to do are simple, but they're regimented and they're habitual. Like, you actually have to do these things regularly, and you have to implement a plan, and you actually have to start doing work. And that's challenging because you're essentially trying to develop a new habit. It's just like starting a workout routine when you haven't worked out in months. It's not going to be easy because you're not used to doing this stuff and it's uncomfortable. So, even though you don't necessarily have to change who you are or revisit all of the issues of the past, you are still going to be uncomfortable during this process because you're developing new habits. But you can develop the new habits without doing all of the soul work, which is important to remember. So for me, this really comes down to starting to come up with what it is that I really want, which is actually shockingly challenging to figure out. And then starting to implement the ideas stated in books like Reality Transurfing and Think and Grow Rich, which is you figure out what you want, then you write it down, and you start to visualize. You utilize visualization in order to see yourself living that life, and then you start to bring your emotions into alignment with that dream or that goal, and then follow whatever path comes to you. And one of the most important things that either of these paths require is intention to actually act. And that's one of the challenging things about concepts like this, is that we talk a lot about desire and wanting things, but we very rarely talk about implementing things. And I think that's because you have to get your head right first, and then you can act. And if you act without getting your head right first, you can run into trouble. So when it comes to implementing, you're looking at something that's highly specific to the individual. You're looking for something that may or may not be right depending upon the emotional state of the person involved. And you're looking at something that's uncertain and cannot be proven, because at best, you're looking at this going, I think it's the best path forward. So all of this stuff, all of these law of attraction concepts, they're just slightly not logical enough for you to get your head 100% on board. To some extent, you have to trust, and you have to allow your intuition to guide you. And I think that's scary for a lot of us. It's like letting go of control. And control is a very important mechanism for the majority of people. Because if you let go of control, how can you guarantee that your life is going to turn out good, or the way that you want it to, or whatever the case may be? So, control is really important to a lot of us. And this concept of letting go of control, letting go of the things that we know or believe can work in order to follow the guidance of our heart or our intuition or our gut, just doesn't seem logical. And to a certain extent, all of this stuff requires faith in order to act, and is shockingly challenging at times to actually implement things. So, like you, despite the fact that I've been studying this stuff for years, I'm still working on the implementation stuff. I'm still trying to figure out what it is that I truly want, working towards visualizing it and making a habit of working with these tools and skills so that I can actually start to manifest these things in my life. And I think part of the reason why it's so challenging to do this is because I don't know if it'll work or not. I do know what my parents and what society has told me will work, and as I have all of the support of them, and all of them, or most of them, telling me that this is what I should do, my tendency is to follow the advice that they give. But my intuition tells me that this information that I've been studying for such a long time is really what I need to be doing, and at some point I'm going to have to jump. And recently I introduced a friend of mine to my sister, and as they were coming into contact with each other, both are hesitant to communicate because they're nervous about what could potentially follow after this meeting. And I told them after they finally met, I'm like, it's always that first step that's the hardest. And this is so true. Every single time, that first step is the hardest. But it does seem like with metaphysical and things like this, the first step is still just the first step. You know, sometimes every step feels like the first step all over again. So it's not always easy. This is definitely not something that you choose once and then never have to think about again. It's concerted daily effort to figure this stuff out. And sometimes it feels like you're starting from square one over and over again. Thankfully, you do get the realization after a while that while it feels like you're back at square one at times, you're actually on a new floor in the same location as far as longitude and latitude goes. So you've moved up a floor, you've heightened your vibration, but you are back on square one, just on a higher level. So it is an interesting concept, and I know that this stuff can be confusing, but honestly, this is not something that you're just going to figure out one day. It's something that you have to work at and work toward and continue to grow with and continue to study, and I am learning that over and over and over again. So hopefully this video will serve as a reminder to some of you. Hopefully it will also serve as a reminder to me to continue to move forward and try to implement these things. And also an encouraging opportunity for you to take a moment to actually start implementing something that you haven't been implementing thus far. So, yeah. I know that this video could be a little confusing, it could be a little off, but I do hope it helped you. If it did, make sure to click on the like button, subscribe to the channel, click the notification bell, and if you have any comments, things that you wish I'd mentioned in this video or expanded on, feel free to leave those in the comment section and I will do my best to respond. But that is everything that I have for you today. I kind of wish that this had been an easier video to make. I don't know why it was such a struggle for me, but I will let you go here and see what comes of this. So thanks for watching. Talk to you soon. Bye.